Chapter 27, Monstification Machine. Clutching her metal tongs in her gloved hands, Dr. Doctor reached inside the jar. She plucked out the black slug, smirked to herself, then placed it on the monstification machine. Hastily, she shut the door to stop the creepy crawly from creepily crawling out, as Larker and Worms spied from their hiding. Placed behind the bubbling potions, Doctor nodded over to Grunt. He bowed his head and pulled a lever. A large circular stone on the floor slid away. Thunk! The cave lit up and red and gold. "Oh no," hissed Worms. "What?" whispered Larker. "The volcano! It's not dead. It's very much alive." Molten lava bubbled up from the hole in the cave. "This means," hissed Larker, "it could go off at any time." Grunt picked up a metal pipe that was connected to the monstification machine and placed it in the lava. "Now we have our lava power," announced Doctor. "Let the monstification begin." She pressed a big red button and the monstification machine buzzed to life. This was whirring, beeping, and a loud whooshing noise. Whirr. Bleep, bleep, whoosh. All of a sudden, Spod's body pulsated with the energy flowing through him. "We have to stop them," shouted Larker. The monstification machine was so noisy that even though she shouted, only Worms could hear her. "It's not too late," she replied. "No, I have to save Spod." Larker jumped up from her hiding place, only to be yanked down by Worms. "If they find you here, just think what they will do to you," he said. "But I have to help him." "I won't let you," said Worms, holding onto her tightly. "It's too dangerous." Larker fell silent. She scrunched up her eyes, unable to watch her friend suffering for one more second longer. Doctor spun the dial on the monstification machine. The dial read, "No danger, a little bit of danger, a tiny bit more danger, a fair amount of danger, a little too much danger, a lot too much danger. Really stop now, as we are very near danger. Danger, 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 danger." For a moment, it felt as if the entire cave was going to fall in on itself, such as the commotion coming from the monstification machine. And then, kaboom! There was a huge explosion. Sparks flew everywhere. Fizz! The flaming torches were blown out. The circular stone over the lava slid back into place. Thunk! All was silent. All was black. "A candle!" Grunt came a cry in the darkness. It was Doctor. "A candle!" "Huh?" came the reply. There was the sound of footsteps before she shouted again, "A lit candle, for goodness sakes!" The sound of a match being struck fizzled through the gloom. The candle was lit, and now Doctor could examine her latest creation. She brought the flame close to the boy. I said boy, but Spod wasn't a boy anymore. He was some kind of monster, a slug monster. Chapter 28, Slug Monster. The monster was half boy and half slug. He had the face of a boy, but the body of a slug. "Slug Monster, my greatest creation yet," declared Dr. Doctor. "Even greater than Meteor Man." "Huh?" grunted Grunt, grinning ghoulishly. The beast writhed on the metal table, letting out a gruesome gurgle. Gug, 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 gug. Spod wasn't there anymore. In his place was a creature guaranteed to give you nightmares. From her hiding place behind the potions, Larker couldn't help herself. "No!" she cried at the horrific sight. "Shh!" shushed Worms. But it was too late. The evil pair was onto them. Doctor's eyes lit up with wicked glee. "Grunt," she announced. "Up, up, up." "Huh?" The wordless assistant knew what to do. He nodded and yanked the metal chain so the greenhouse went back up to the ceiling. Clank. "Unleash the slug monster!" "Huh?" The man untied the leather strap and that held the beast in place. The monster slithered off the table onto the floor of the cave. "Slug monster, find the intruders," ordered Doctor. "Now!" Slug monster understood perfectly and began snaking around the cave. As he did, he left a silver trail of slime behind. Larker and Worms stayed dead still and dead silent as the monster edged closer and closer. They were crouched on the other side of the counter, but the monster was sniffing them out with his tentacles. Finally, he opened his mouth wide to take a bite. Ah! Screamed Larka. She pushed on the counter with all of her might, and Worms followed her lead. The counter toppled over, taking all the test tubes and beakers of bubbling potions with it. Shunt, crash, smash, gurgle, cried the creature, retreating. Who is there? Thundered Doctor. The counter, hissed Larka. It was now lying on its side, and with the help of Worms, the girl slid it across the floor to block Grunt's path. Thunk, grunted Grunt, which meant no. Grunt's language is quite simple, really. It is only when he grunts 3 times that the things become complicated. He tripped over the counter and fell to the ground. Doof! He grunted. What that meant was anyone's guess, but Grunt did not sound pleased. Quick, let's make a run for it, hissed Larka. She grabbed Worms by the hand and together they hurried back up the spiral staircase. Trip, trap, trod. Slug monster, commanded Doctor. After them! Gurgle! Gurgled the slug in reply. That giant slug won't make it up the stairs, said Worms. Don't look back, just run, snapped Larka. But as they ran up the stairs, she noticed a trail of silver painting the walls of the cave. Oh no, she exclaimed. The slug monster was using his super suction powers to stick onto the wall. In no time he had outrun them or outslithered them, and she was at the top of the staircase waiting. What did the slug say as he slipped down the wall? How slime flies. Not now, exclaimed Worms. Larka looked down at the bottom of the staircase. Doctor was waiting for them. You aren't getting away, whoever you are, purred the teacher. We're trapped, said Worms. There must be a way out, replied Larka. The slug monster at her feet opens its mouth and gurgled. Gurgle! That thing is going to eat us, hissed Worms, taking a cowardly step behind Larka. And you first. My friend is in there somewhere, replied Larka. The slug monster began sliding straight towards her. You are not a monster, began Larka, trying to sound calm, despite the deep sense of dread she was feeling. Her heart was pumping so fast she could barely catch her breath. The monster's tentacles twitched. Your name is Spod, and you are my friend. Why exactly? Dunno. The tentacles twitched again. Larka slowly reached out her hand towards the creature. Careful, whispered Worms from the safety of his hiding place behind her. Her fingers reached one of the giant slug's tentacles. She stroked it. The monster's expression seemed to soften. Spod, please, let us pass, she whispered. Destroy them, barked Doctor as she raced up the staircase, followed closely by a huffing and puffing Grunt. You are my creation, slug monster, and you will do what I say. Destroy at once. The creature lifted his head. Whatever kindness he may have had in his expression was gone. It was replaced by a look of evil. Gurgle, he gurgled, before lunging at Larka. Ah, she screamed. Chapter 29. Midnight. Worms just managed to whisk Larka up into the air in time. He swung her by her hands over the top of the slug monster. Whoosh! Before he leapt over too, the monster snapped at Larka and bit off her boot. Ouch! He spat out the boot, which began tumbling down the stone case. Thunk, thunk. My boot, she hissed. Leave it, said Worms. As the slug monster launched himself at them, Worms just managed to slam the door behind him. Bang! Without looking back, Larka and Worms raced through the vaults of the castle. It wasn't until they were out in the courtyard that they paused for breath. I have seen some big slugs in my time, began Worms, but that one takes the biscuit. What is the definition of a slug? A snail with a housing problem, said Larka. We need to stop Doctor and Grunt before they transform any other kids into monsters. A thick fog was descending on the island. Well, it's been a thrilling evening, hasn't it, Wormy? Said Worms, taking the worm out of his pocket and kissing her on one end. Let's pray the good end. But Wormy and me better get back to the shed and get some sleep. Good night. Sleep! Exclaimed Larka. Shh! You'll wake up the entire school. Sleep! She exclaimed, a little quieter this time, but not quiet enough for Worms's liking. He grimaced and placed his fingers where he imagined Wormy's ears might be. How can you sleep at a time like this? What time is it? He replied, looking up at the pelican chained to one of the turrets. The pelican was being prodded again by Meadow's mop and squawked 12 times. Squawk, 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 squawk. Larka and Worms hid in the shadows from the caretaker. 12 squawks, it's midnight, whispered Worms. What? I lost my boot and it's midnight? Hey, why is Cinderella so bad at football? I don't know, but I've got a feeling you're going to tell me, because she's always running away from balls. Worms smiled weakly. Not one of your best. Only Cinderella joke I know. Now, what if Doctor and Grunt find my boot? It's very dark down in that there cave. But what if they do? Well, if they find it, they'll know it was me down there. We can't go back for it. Not now. No. It is too dangerous. Let's make a plan in the morning. Right now, it's way past me, your, and Wormy's bedtime. Good night. The gardener turned to go, but Larka was having none of it. Stop, said the girl. It was only 12. But she could be very forceful when she wanted to be. Worm stopped in his tracks. One question I'm dying to know the answer to. Who's in charge here at the Cruel School? That'd be the headmistress. Always has been and always will be. Been here since the day I arrived as a young whippersnapper. Let's go and see her. See the professor? He asked. His tone of voice suggested this was the most absurd suggestion he'd ever heard in his life. Yes, replied the girl. But no one has seen the professor for years. Why not? Asked Larka incredulously. Well, nobody knows, but the professor has had a do not disturb sign on her office door forever, and no one has dared to disturb her. Tell me where her office is, and I'm going to disturb her right now and tell her what is going on. It's midnight. Do you want to get a detention? A shiver ran down Larka's spine. No. Let's try first thing in the morning. Promise? I promise, but the door is always locked, so if she doesn't answer the door, then I'm sorry, but we don't have a chance. Who has the key? It's an old brass one, bigger than all the rest. Metal must have it. Splendid. What do you mean, splendid? Nothing. Don't get yourself into any trouble, Missy, he pleaded. As if I would, she chirped. Worms shook his head in despair. Okay, and that's the end of this chapter. We'll read chapter 30 next time. Bye for now.